The question is that the bill be now agreed to in principle. I call the member for Leichhardt. Balmain, sorry.
That's
your
right.
counsel as opposed to your seat.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr Acting Speaker. I rise today to discuss this bill, which, as we have already heard many speakers speak on today, highlights a very interesting change in the attitude towards so-called clean coal, and also demonstrates the need for this government and this state to look towards not a future that's based purely on coal, but a future that's based on renewables and a future that's based on sustainability and a low-carbon future. As we've heard from other speakers, the main focus of this bill is the name. It changes the name of the Clean Coal Council and the Clean Coal Fund to Coal Innovation New South Wales and Coal Innovation New South Wales Fund, respectively. Now, before I go on to talk about the substance of the bill, I think it's important to recognise what the word clean coal actually meant. Clean coal was part of the PR campaign, the public relations pushed by the coal industry to claim that coal did not have emissions, that coal could be clean, that coal actually could be a long-term resource for the future. And I'm glad that the government has acknowledged, as has the rest of the scientific community, that clean coal does not exist, that clean coal cannot happen, and that the PR campaign pushed by the coal industry has in fact failed. It's failed to the extent that even a coalition government has recognised that clean coal does not exist. And to me, and I think to many people in New South Wales, we hope that it's the beginning of an understanding that while coal at the moment, of course, is an important energy resource for New South Wales, that there is much, much more that this government can and must do, not only to reduce our carbon footprint, but to develop the jobs, the job-rich green industries that we need for the future to drive our state economy, and also to ensure that we have a very strong energy future moving into the next century. So while we've acknowledged that the coal industry has lost their PR battle to claim that coal is clean, we've also recognised there's another battle, which is carbon geoquestration, which, as we've heard from the member for Hawkesbury and we've heard from other members, is completely unviable. And we've seen hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars spent on this technology for very, very little outcome. And I also acknowledge the contribution from the member for Hawkesbury, and I congratulate him on the fact that he is taking a whole range of personal steps to reduce his own impact on the environment and on the climate. And it is positive as well that he raised the issue of solar thermal. And I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about solar thermal in the context of coal, because there's a claim, and in fact it's been made several times, that baseload power cannot be provided by renewable resources. Well, we know, as the member for Hawkesbury highlighted, that baseload power can be provided. And we know that New South Wales can be a leader in reducing the burden on climate change. We can generate jobs and protect households from rising coal and electricity prices. You hear a lot of people talk about the carbon tax and how there's been huge increases in electricity prices. Not because of carbon tax. Why have there been enormous increases in electricity prices? There's been enormous increases in electricity prices because of the need to renew the infrastructure and because of the increase in the price of coal. And as coal is a finite resource, as the amount of coal moving forward, not just over this term of this parliament, but over the next generations, reduces, the price of coal will increase. So we've seen the 35% increased numbers on electricity bills has nothing to do with carbon. Absolutely nothing to do with carbon pricing, absolutely nothing to do with the carbon tax. We know that there's been a small component of that due to the solar bonus and the renewable solar bonus scheme. The lion's share of that increase has come from the $15+ billion required to renew our ancient technology, which is coal-fired power stations, and to renew infrastructure. So when we talk about the future of electricity prices, how do we protect our local communities against increasing electricity prices, reducing the cost of living pressures on local communities? We do that by investing in renewable energy. And I just might mention a policy which the Greens took to the last election, which was about the issue raised by the member for Hawkesbury, which is solar thermal. And we believe that we can kickstart the transition to renewable energy in New South Wales by building baseload solar thermal power stations with heat storage in the Central West. We're great supporters of the Central West, wonderful part of New South Wales. And we, much like the O'Farrell government, believe in the effectiveness of bonds. The O'Farrell government has talked about Waratah bonds, and we Greens took to the election what we called green infrastructure bonds. And we believe that we can harness the power of the sun to power steam turbines which would provide reliable, zero-emission baseload electricity 24 hours a day using heat storage technologies. And we have actually gone through and looked at the details of how that can be proposed. We know that household power bills will be protected in the future by reducing New South Wales' exposure to international coal prices, and we know that on the future modelling, coal prices in the next decade are expected to double. So we know that we have an increasing cost of that resource, and we know that protecting people from electricity increases to support local business, to support our growing industry and productivity means having effective electricity pricing. And we know that coal doesn't provide that. So I wanted to talk about, just very briefly while we're discussing this issue of coal and following on from the member for Hawkesbury's comments, how base load power can be delivered by solar thermal facilities. We've seen that in Spain, in California, in the UAE, throughout other countries in the world, base load power being generated from solar. And the particular model that we Greens have proposed would create about 4,500 jobs at its peak, with additional jobs if the mirrors and the other components from solar thermal are created here in Australia, with operations and maintenance, with our view where there should be 3 solar thermal plants, would create 1,900 new and ongoing jobs. The modelling which we have done, which is on our website and available to look at, talks about a 200 megawatt utility scale grid connected baseload solar thermal power station. We believe that it can be paid for using green bonds, as we've discussed, that raise revenue from the sale of electricity, the renewable energy certificates and other green energy products. And these power plants would cost approximately $2.1 billion to build. And if you look at the funding model for these types of technologies, the government could issue green bonds, as we call them, green infrastructure bonds, to the value of around $525 million for each of the 4 years of construction. The second and third plants we expect would cost significantly less as the technology matures and state experience is accumulated, allowing them to show a greater net economic benefit. Now, compared to a coal-fired power station of the same size, a 200 megawatt solar thermal plant would have a $180 million a year advantage. That's a very important point. 200 megawatt coal-fired facility, a solar thermal facility would have a $180 million a year advantage. Now, why is that? It's because you would save on operational costs in terms of obviously the inputs, but also the sale of renewable energy certificates and not having to pay a carbon price, which we now know the federal government has introduced, or is in the process of introducing. And if you look at the modelling of that structure, there's sufficient revenue to service the interest and repay the capital on what we call green infrastructure bonds required to finance a facility. Let's say at a return rate on our modelling 7.5% over 30 years, which is generous in terms of a return on a bond. So our view is it should be fully publicly owned and operated. We believe that we can build, and we know the technology exists. We know in the United States and other countries, baseload solar thermal is being developed to deliver solar thermal technology here in New South Wales. And this is how this government, when it comes to managing electricity in the future, could make an incredible difference. And we hope to be able to work with the government to not just deal with energy issues in the future, such as coal, but also look at investing in a sustainable way in a jobs-rich facility that makes New South Wales lead this country in terms of how we generate electricity. I might make a few other points if I can, Mr Temporary Speaker. Just on the issue of how this government has approached solar, we know that the government made the right decision. The government made the right decision, and I think all of us were delighted when they changed their position on the feed-in solar bonus. And obviously more work needs to be done on that, but the government has had a wobbly start on the energy issue, but it's made the right decision by reversing its original policy announcement, and I hope that this is an opportunity to not just change some names, but also change direction in terms of developing a renewable energy future here in New South Wales. Because I was a little disappointed that the Minister said that wind and solar are not able to provide reliable baseload power, and that's true. At the moment it's not, because there isn't significant investment in this area. And because of the uncertainty that's been injected into the solar industry here in New South Wales, it's no surprise that the solar industry is a sector in our community and in our business community that has been suffering a lot of uncertainty and therefore are reluctant to invest. But I call on the government to seriously investigate the issue of solar thermal, to look at how we can develop low-cost types of electricity generation that protect consumers and businesses from what we know will be significantly increasing electricity prices, as coal prices we know are set to double in the next 10 years. And I trust that this is just the beginning of this government recognising that the battle which we've had for over 10 years now against the coal industry spin, 10 years ago everyone's saying clean coal, no problem, we can get there, easily done. Let's spend a few $1 billion and we'll have clean coal. 10 years later, we've realised it's a fallacy. It won't happen. Wasted money. And so now we're moving to other forms of innovation, which may deliver some benefits, but we know that renewable energy is the future for this state and it's the future for this country. And it's only if governments take this on in a really proactive way that we can have the kind of innovative state that all of us here are looking for, where business, where households are supported in their ventures with stable electricity prices, with a low carbon economy. So I thank the Minister for presenting this bill. We obviously, because of the element of small change in it, will not be opposing the bill, but we look forward to the government taking on seriously the issue of the future of electricity generation in this state. Thank you.
The question